Hello everyone and welcome to today's stream. Today I'm joined by our wonderful filmmakers who were the Audience Choice winners from the Berlin Lifter Film Festival. Joining us today is Justin, Raymond, Natalia and John. Thank you guys for being here. The chat room is open, so please feel free to ask our filmmakers any questions as the stream goes on. We'll be playing the films muted in the background and we have a trailer to screen as well. So let's get started. So let's start with Isolation. So that will be coming on your screens any second now. There we go, it's starting my side. So, Justin, you just gave a wonderful introduction to your film, and as we can see by the opening shots here, you're in a farm, there's cows going on, and lots of different things happening. Take us back, take us right back to the beginning of the story, and a little bit more about the inspiration, how you pieced it together, and linking it to Tiger King.
I knew that I wanted him to have been from a rural cult, and I just decided that it was going to be loosely based on it was kind of loosely based on Heaven's Gate, which was a cult, famous cult from the 1990s, I think. And that's actually where that VHS aesthetic that I was using came from, really, because it has to do with indoctrination through the television. And I was always fascinated with the way that famous cult leader used videotapes. And it's been parodied and spoofed and stuff over the years, but I always found it like the talking head cult leader on the television screen to be something I was always fascinated with. And I just applied that, even though that wasn't a rural cult. I just knew that I had access to this great farm in a town called Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is outside of Vancouver, where I'm from. And I had access to this sprawling farm and corn maze and these really great family that lent me the property. And so I applied the cult stuff to the more rural setting, and that's what that is. But I just simply knew that John, I wanted him to be from a cult, so that when he got into the real world after having fled that indoctrination, he realized that this world that we live in is maybe just as crazy. Maybe he had it better off where he came from. I can't actually see the film. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be able to see where we're at. Am I missing or am I not supposed to see that?
No, you won't be seeing it through the call, but you should be able to see it on the YouTube stream.
Gotcha. Okay.
Gotcha. Well, but what I can see, I can guide you through it. So at the moment we're in the condo where the virus has just had the outbreak, and it's breaking news all over TV.
Good. I have my monitor now. Sorry, that was my bad. It's in front of me. Okay, so we're in the condo now, and I actually, if I could have had the rights to do it, I would have just had Tiger King playing. I would have just had Tiger King. I mean, the whole thing with the news and the pandemic breaking out, and it's not really literally COVID necessarily. It's just set in a world parallel to what we're going through. It's just supposed to show that in the isolation of his apartment and he's just waiting for the TV to tell him what to do. But the news is toxic in its own way, and so is Tiger King. I wish I could have put Tiger King in there, but it was just supposed to be a medley of all the hysteria that was piping through that TV in his apartment, and it's the only nutrition that he's getting. He's not able to get his medication, which is what he really needs, because without it, and I didn't go into what his mental health issues are specifically, but without his pills, he's subject to become he'll slip back into the conditioning of the cult that he used to come from.
Okay.
So.
Wow.
So he gets on. He seems to be. It's like he's being summoned back to that world. So he's wrestling with his past, and where he wants to go, but he doesn't seem to think he has a future anymore.
Going back to the title of your film, over the last, I would say 8 months ago, we started to get films based on isolation, based on COVID, and it's so refreshing to see a take that isn't so black and white. This is about the virus, this is about what is happening in the world right now. So how have you found that going into other film festivals? Have you had a good response? Have you had lots of screenings?
Yeah, it seems that I was actually surprised. I was really pleased with the reception of this being what I would call sort of a friends and family movie, like a backyard film effort. It was something that I used the resources I had in my community, and I called in a few favors from over the years and got access to these locations. And but yeah, I don't think I would have done a COVID film that was literally about that. I usually like to work in more abstract concepts. Although my next movie, I'm actually trying to just tell a story, just do it, just like a classic story, because I still feel like I obviously have a lot of room. I have a lot of room to grow as a filmmaker, and I do want to be able to do these abstract things that I do, but my ambition is to be able to express them in ways that are more plot driven and find a home in a more classic storytelling style.
Okay.
That more people can get on board with. I was actually kind of scared by making this short film because of how crazy it is. I didn't want to deter from the feature that I plan to make next, and hope and scare people away from thinking that, oh, he always works in these. Not everybody can get on board with this style, and I was glad to hear that actually people seem to be at least getting something out of it. So yeah, I'm just really really pleased with these great little performances from, like, you're looking at Evan Riley Brown right now, and I met him at a comedy club that I used to go to with my girlfriend like every Friday. It was like our thing to do was go watch comedy, and he had this stage character that's not so different from the boy in the film here. And I just walked up to him and said, I'm making a short film. Do you want to be in it? And then this is Alex Johnston. He used to be in a Canadian pop band called These Kids Wear Crowns. Which is,
No idea.
At least in Canada, they were on the radio all the time. And,
Okay.
And some of my first work was actually music videos for his band when I was like 19.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so everybody in this thing and every location you see is like a small fragment of my like filmmaking experience and journey over the last 10 years. So it was a lot of fun to just bring it all together and do something to stay active, because like I said, it's just something I could only do so much given the climate of what was going on and other filmmaking projects being put on hold. And this was like really just an exercise in being expressive instead of being stagnant, and getting rid of some of those frustrations in a little movie. That's all.
You've touched on some really interesting points there, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was casting. And for any viewers out there, maybe actors that are watching, we always say to those people, go to film festivals and meet other filmmakers. And you've just mentioned that you cast from going to a comedy show and seeing that performer. So it is very important to reach out to the filmmakers that you yes. see and you enjoy their work, because you never know where those connections might go. So yeah, exactly, working with people that you know.
And it's so cool to be sitting in a room with you guys, filmmakers from all these various places in the planet, and we're just sitting here it's another thing that speaks to the time we're living in, that we're sitting and doing this over Zoom, and everyone's still sharing work. I actually talked to my friend recently about the other thing that this movie meant to me was just about an effort of perseverance. We were talking about like storytellers and filmmakers and, well, really anything, even business owners in general, who, what we're doing right now to try and still be creative and still be expressive and not let this period that we're going through completely put a halt to it. So this is sort of like making this short film for me was sort of just like a lateral move. It was I have to stay active. I need to do something, or else I'm going to go crazy like John in the film. Really, that's what would happen to me.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of creatives felt like that through the last year. Just get on and make something new.
I liked in this shot, the farm is over his shoulder. Like the idea of the cult and his past is in the house, in the picture frames that we put up there with the farm. Yeah, that's one little detail I actually really liked about that scene. There's an idea here that, well, again, I don't really like to explain things too much. It kind of takes the piss out of it if you explain what everything means. I'll try to stay a little bit more general, even though I do like those conversations. You know, it's you can
Feel free
ask
to.
me
I've
questions,
I've
too.
seen this film, so any bits that you want to pluck out, I would love to hear about. Yeah, everything that it's going back to that thing. Everything that you see in a film is there for a reason. Yeah. Cool, so
This character here is one of my best friends. I've known him since kindergarten. The guy on the balcony there. This I he's if you look at my films like over time, you'll see that he's always somewhere in there. Like he's just my closest childhood friend. He's been in everything I've ever done. He is just absolutely a delight. Yeah, this
So-
tower is in. Sorry.
no, continue.
This tower sits above the town of Burnaby, which is right on the edge of Vancouver. So in some shots, you can see Vancouver in the distance. But the hardest thing, like logistic-wise, was just getting the penthouse for this shoot, because I really didn't want to settle on. I needed this, you know what I mean? I needed to be right in the thick of feeling like you're just above the clouds in a way. And I had a hard time finding a condo that would work, because even though like my apartment's like decent looking, I have some friends who have some nice places, but you know what, you guys know this, you need something like much larger in scale in order to get what you want in the frame. And so this shoot here doesn't really do justice to actually how nice that condo is, the high ceilings, but it was just large enough to give me the frame that I was actually looking for. And I was able to call in another favor there, actually another band that I used to work, another Canadian pop group called Party Hero. I know you guys have never heard of these people. His family, the producer of that band, his family owns that condo, and so they were really generous in letting me shoot there. And I was calling in favors from music videos I did like 6 years ago to get some of the pieces for this. And this is Lilith Fox, and she's been in my work over the years. She was in my very first film, The Generations. And she's also going to be in my next feature film coming up. We're starting in August. And she's just one of my favorite people. Her whole family has been involved in my filmmaking. Her father owns properties in the Okanagan, which is an incredible sort of Canada's wine country.
Okay.
It looks like Napa Valley. It's really beautiful.
Wow.
And we actually shoot there for we shoot southern Okanagan in Canada here for California, because it looks like you're in, I mean, it really does. It's the only desert in Canada. I'm getting way off topic here. This is insane, but there's
It's
a
still
desert
interesting.
in Canada,
It's still interesting.
and we shoot it for California all the time. Yeah, so the cult leader is you know, the father and the patriarch of this family. And he's summoning the boy home. John had left that family to pursue more truth in the world. He set out to find his own answers, and he had a suspicion that the world that had been explained to him by his father maybe wasn't the whole truth. So he was so isolated on that farm that he had to go out into the world to discover his own path. But once he's in the isolation of his apartment, he's feeling like he's just been put under a different kind of a spell.
Yeah.
And that's why it came to me when I was watching Tiger King. I don't know what else to tell you. And this is I meant to talk about that squib. We actually built that squib with a pump from Home Depot. We filled up a spray bottle, like a pump, and got the PSI pressure as maximum as I could get it. And then we put the tube under his shirt, and then I just let the pressure go on the pump valve, and I had already snipped a tiny little hole in his shirt, and it just blew open. You know, for a cheap trick, I thought that it actually worked pretty well, because it cost about $20 in supplies to do that shot.
Amazing.
And this building is not the same as the penthouse, so I shot 2 different condos. So I seamed them together, and I think that it worked out pretty well. It's one of the only like logistical, like production, framing, real issues that I had to work with, and limitations. I mean, there's all kinds of limitations, but that was one of the bigger ones. I didn't have access to a bedroom at the penthouse, and I didn't have access to a hallway at the penthouse.
Sure.
So the front door, the corridor outside, and the bedroom scenes are all at a different location. And it's at a location that is a much more humble apartment building. And I was really worried that they wouldn't match, like it wasn't going to connect. And nobody brought it up, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah.
And when I was a teenager, like 13, 14, one of the first short films I made actually had two houses across the street from each other that weren't actually across the street from each other. And that's kind of where I learned how to be a director, was how do I make that house feel like it's here? Because when he goes out into the front yard, we do a front tracking shot. And then when the camera turns, I have something obscure the lens so that we don't notice that the camera's cut out. And now we're at a different street somewhere else, half an hour away. And actually, that's how I learned how to be a filmmaker and how it all kind of worked, the tricks. And so when I did this and I had to match the two apartment buildings, I felt refreshed because I felt like a kid again. And I felt like I was back to problem solving and figuring out how to make the pieces come together. And there's no stakes involved in it. I made this for fun with my friends, and it's like, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work. And so I actually felt like a kid again. It was great.
So you started making films when you were 13 years old?
Probably before that, but...
Probably before?
But I got my first like HD camcorder at 13 and set out to try, seriously at that age. Yeah.
So what was the story that you made as a 13-year-old with the two houses?
It was kind of a Rear Window, kind of a Hitchcock thing. So there was these people who live in this house. They spy on their neighbors, and they're obsessed. They've got binoculars and they've got telescopes in like every room of the house, and they're constantly watching their neighbors and like taking notes. And they're just absolutely insane. And they're obsessed with following the movements of their neighbors. And they're paranoid and they're conspiracy theorists. And they think that there is a government operation being run in the neighborhood. And that their neighbors are all secretly agent sleeper cells that have been activated. And it turns out they're right. And so
sounds like a lot of fun. I can see why your imagination led you down this path. This is actually a question I was going to ask all of you individually, and I think now's a good time to slot this question in. But what film or what moment in your life made you realize that it was the film industry that you wanted to work in?
Do you want me to go? Or
yeah, and then I'll ask the others when we're watching their films as well.
Okay. I'm gonna probably think of one as I'm in the car after this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be like, shoot, I should have said that. But the other day, I was trying to describe to my girlfriend, like, reminding her why it is that I do this and why I'm pursuing this further, why I'm still dedicated to this, and which, by the way, Natalia, like the meaning of your film and staying with a dream and staying with the path spoke a lot to me. I thought that your film was absolutely outstanding. And I totally understood it within the first like 3 frames. But anyways, the thing is, the movie the thing that I showed my girlfriend to help get her in the mindset of how I felt when I was a kid, discovering what you mentioned, which was what was an early thing that triggered you to become a filmmaker or whatever. I think I watched the documentary A Life in Pictures when I was like 8 or 9 years old, which was about Kubrick, the one that's narrated by Tom Cruise. And it was on TV, it was on cable, and I had no idea who Stanley Kubrick was at that age. But I knew who Tom Cruise was. And his voice, I was like, isn't that Tom Cruise's voice? But it was funny because it was just enough, there was a mainstream appeal to make me watch 10 minutes of this movie just to see why Tom Cruise was narrating it. And then I delved into like discovering what a director was. And I learned what a director was through that documentary. Like you always hear like there's a producer, a director, you see credits on movies as a kid and you don't really quite understand who does what. And most people in the world actually don't really know the difference between a producer or a director or a cinematographer. There's so many filmmaker, there's so many words and titles. But watching that body of work, because the documentary in A Life in Pictures shows it's a retrospective on his entire body of work, and he only made like 7 films, maybe I'm wrong, 8, give or take 1 or 2, but the collection of them made me realize that he had left behind a legacy and that each one of those movies was like an individual painting, and it was like not to speak to like the cliche of a movie being a painting. Well, in his case, they are, and it was evident to me as a child that like this was a guy who actually left behind a body of work that I really understood. And I never really read that much as a kid, so I didn't understand like authors with their like series of books, or I didn't really have that in my palette. But it spoke to me that a film director had left behind this collection of movies, and when you watch them all together, each one is, you actually start to see, like, even though they're so different, you see that there is a commonality between them, and you can see the man in his work, the filmmaker in his work throughout. And that's what made me realize what a director was and start pursuing it in the first place. I think that was it. So
Wow. For me, it was just very simply just going to the cinema and just getting completely taken by the world and realizing that this is what I want to do. I want to be a part of it. So you had a lot stronger meaning and a deeper way in than what I did. But wow.
yeah, see, it was. Then when I started actually shooting, then I really fell in love with it. But yeah, that was the thing that made me understand that it was like a possible thing out there in the world that you could do, and that there was, in many cases, there was like I didn't realize movies were by somebody. I know there's commercial films that are by a committee, especially nowadays, but that's the discovery that you could actually go out and make a film, and it's you can project your own reality. You can describe the world as you want to describe it. You can really it gives you a lot of power.
It does. Your film has now come to an end as well, so I've got you blown back up on a bigger screen. Thank you so much for being involved in the festival and within this stream here today.